Thank you so much for joining us. We are here at the wonderful offices of GSK in Bangalore, and joining us today would be Mohan Patnaik. Mohan is a VP and the leader of the GCC here in Bangalore. So thank you, Mohan, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you on this series. Let me sort of start with the first question. GSK has set up this center very recently in India. What were some of the things that you saw specifically in India as a location that stood out for you to set up the center here? Did you look at other countries? In general, what are the advantages that you see as far as India as a location is concerned?
Good question, Arindam. If you are not aware, we had centers outside India, like Poland, Costa Rica, and Malaysia, even before we set this up. We didn't call them as GCCs, we set them up as hubs, which are more like a nearshore centers. But when we rolled out our Future Ready program, that's when we saw a specific need to tap into a huge market like India, and it was pretty straightforward kind of a decision. For a simple reason, right? India offers something which no other country in this world offers in terms of just the workforce capability, not only diverse set of capabilities, but also at scale. Right. Where India really is ahead and will continue to be ahead is it not only gives the diversity of skills and capabilities, and it is a very mature market. GCCs have been here for 25 years, and it also gives us the scale. So when we looked into it, the question was more, where in India rather than why India? So that way it was pretty straightforward decision.
So where in India rather than why India? So that's an interesting point. Now, GSK has been around for what, about 100 odd years? I mean, it's a company that specializes in healthcare. Now that you've sort of been in this journey for a couple of years at least, what are some of the key learnings as you set up this center?
You're right, we were in India this is our 100th year, and we have a great household brand as GSK. While that is true, we are very new to GCC, right? So it was slightly easier for us to attract R&D talent because we are known as a pharma company. When it came to technology, we are not known in the GCC industry. Right. So I think what we kind of looked at is initial branding in terms of attracting certain talent for which people do not see GSK as a tech company. That was one biggest challenge. The second one is obviously we set this up during pandemic, and which is very unknown thing. And that was the second biggest challenge which we had to set up a facility during pandemic when it's locked down, recruiting talent at pace, because we had a definitive plan of demerger. So we didn't have a flexibility with time. So those are some of the challenges which we had. In terms of the learning, right, though we had the advantage of late mover, it's a mature market, large talent pool of lateral hiring. While that played in our advantage, building that brand, particularly in certain spaces like tech, was one of the key learnings. So how do we do that? I think we played to our strength while we looked into the market in terms of what other peer group does. We played to our strength. One, we had a brand, but we need to reposition it, that why technology is important for our purpose. If you actually see our purpose statement really nailed it for us, that we unite science, technology, and talent to get ahead of disease. I think we really built on that particular purpose and strategy to really attract the talent. So that's clearly one. The pandemic, the way we kind of looked into is, obviously we are a global company, very caring company. We focused on health and well-being of our people. So when you are doing this during pandemic, you need to be empathetic and to really needs of the people and those things. So I think some of our policies were driven by the situation of the COVID, which actually kept us in good stead. So those learnings are, right, about, it's all about people. We are in the people business. And how do we leverage our kind of a brand, though it is in the different industry, to play to our this thing. Maybe final thing, the learning is be yourself. You don't need to be in the rat race, because you know when we are looking into the technology space during pandemic, everybody had 4 offers. So you had a choice whether you will get into that rat race or be yourself. So we chose to really stick to our strength and be who we are. That really helped us.
Interesting. So you actually mentioned three very different perspectives. The first one resonates with a large number of GCCs because they keep talking about the company as an entity and what they do, and then the GCC is set up to do completely different things. So people get very confused as to if I am joining this company, I should be working on its core expertise and not necessarily what the GCC does. So branding is an important part. You set this up during the COVID time, right? Which is fascinating. Any challenges you faced? I mean, you didn't get a chance to onboard people in the normal way. Was that all virtually? How did that go?
Yeah. So I've been in this industry for 23 years. Though I've set up GCCs multiple times at scale, never in this kind of an environment. So, and hence, though while I was very familiar with the core foundations of the GCCs, how we do it is completely new. Never recruited people just virtually. So there is a huge element of risk you are taking, not knowing the particular, I'm talking about leadership team.
Right.
We never met any one of the leaders we recruited, but we trusted our judgment, we onboarded them on this. But as they say, any such challenge also brings the innovation and the creativity. What we really learned first is the entire recruitment process, pre-onboarding and onboarding process, we were very, very creative. I think that really kind of helped us. There was a time when India was going through the second wave. There was a big question mark whether India will make it or not.
Right.
I think what we did was, we also didn't know what to expect.
Right.
We stayed close to our people, and we just said we will take one day at a time, we will persevere, and we will never give up. So I think some of those things which really helped us. It wasn't easy, but on hindsight, we will say we were proactive because of the unknown. We didn't really kind of look at a fear of failure, right? Whatever is in our control, we will kind of do that. So some of those things really helped us.
And do you think it exceeded your expectations in terms of what you accomplished during that time?
Absolutely. Not only, as I said, I was always confident that we will make it work, but being confident is one thing, right? Actually making it happen. To be honest, we exceeded my own expectations, and we exceeded the expectation of all our stakeholders. There were question marks through the journey, but we dealt with them one day at a time, one question at a time, to really make it happen. As you know, this is all about gaining that confidence and trust.
Right.
And that happens only when you execute, not when you promise.
So, I mean, you are a shining example of the fact that you can not only set up a GCC in the country and set it up quickly, but you can set it up on one of the most difficult phases that the country went through, pretty much all virtually, right? Now let's talk a little bit about talent, Mohan, because you mentioned a lot about hiring, branding, etc. Today, as you continue to build the center, what's differentiating you from the rest of the GCCs and companies? How do you go out into the market today to attract talent? From an employee value proposition perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we have been in this market for long enough to know there are certain things which are tangible. Your compensations, your titles, and those things are very clear and tangibles. But what we focused on, those are given metrics, right? You do a Mercer survey, you will know where you stand, where you want to be. Those are clear tangibles which are given. Everybody does that. Right. That is not a differentiator. The second thing, as I mentioned, is the branding. While we had to leverage the branding of 100 years being in the country, but we also need to build a brand within the GCC, right? While that was a challenge. So where we focused on is the employee value proposition is the entire experience side of it and valuing people, right? The culture, I think that's where we leveraged heavily about our global culture of genuinely valuing people.
Great.
So when we looked into it, all our policies, which we kind of worked out, are not only the best in the market, But because we have a good global policies, we kind of embrace those things and went a step further to really, because we set it up on the pandemic, right? I'll give you a simple example of everybody has sick leave.
Right.
And when we were setting it up, we said, we are a healthcare company. Sickness doesn't go well with us, right? And during pandemic, people are falling sick for months, right? So we rebranded that as a wellness leave. We took away the limit of, okay, you are entitled to fall sick 15 days. We said you are unwell, so you are on wellness leave till you get well. The little nuances which connects to who you are, what you do, those are the things which we focused on, the softer aspects of it, because we genuinely believed in it. Health and well-being, because we are a healthcare company. So those are some of the kind of nuances which brought the value proposition. The second thing is, for example, I talked about the tech being very, very competitive during that time. We played on our purpose. We are a purpose-driven company, and our purpose is much broader and wider and higher than making the top line and the bottom line. We want to get ahead of the disease, and we play to our ambition of 2.5 billion people being impacted by our medicines and vaccines. And we said, okay, it can be our family members, it can be our neighbors. I think those are the things which really connected people to more than a job. They could really say, okay, my contribution will make a difference to somebody in my family or this thing. So those are the things which we really built on while keeping the general hygiene things which everybody does.
So differentiating yourself based on the smaller, often overlooked things, like the wellness leave was a very interesting example. So let me just shift gears. You set up the GCC, we spoke a lot about talent. Now it's the actual work that you're delivering from here that is, of course, very, very important. Talk to us a little bit about what kind of transformations and programs you're running out of the center here. How does this contribute to the overall purpose, as you say, of GSK?
So before I answer that, I think there is one important element which I missed mentioning earlier. The way we set this up is, while we are called GCC, we set this up as an integral part of GSK, which means we didn't have a separate vision for this center. We didn't have a separate numbers for success. We said whatever is the company's purpose is our purpose. We are part of the company. This is another location. That is important for people to really, employees to see, feel connected to the bigger picture. So that's one thing. The second thing is, you talked about transformation. As we set this up, one of the key capability which the company didn't really invest in over the past many years, which we wanted to invest in here, is the transformation capability. And the reason for that is, as you know, any business continues to transform itself. It is an ongoing effort. It's not a one-time effort. So there is a clear expectation that that talent pool is available here, and we'll build that capability to really work on enterprise-wide transformation initiatives. So I think we are, as many companies are, we are a very functionally driven company, right? We have R&D, tech, procurement, HR, there are a number of functions.
And all of them are represented here?
All of them are represented here, and they are globally aligned, driven by the global strategy, but the transformation team brings everybody together, that common horizontal thread that brings together to transform the company. I think that's where we really found our sweet spot to really say, look, GCC here in India is best placed to connect all the functions together for a common objective. And that's where this capability came into picture. The way we go about is, whatever is the globally aligned transformation initiatives, we either execute, lead, or we support. I think that for us is the real kind of a deal breaker in terms of where we can really take it to the next level and add value. This is a value delivery kind of a location rather than just cost sharing.
And you've been now a GCC for how long?
Under 3 years.
Under 3 years, that's fascinating. So in 3 years, you've set up a GCC, again, during one of the most difficult times. You've rebranded yourself to make yourself, let's say, more marketable, to the tech talent that we have, not only in Bangalore but in India. And then now you're working on transformations that impact enterprise-wide. You've got pretty much every function represented here. I think it's a phenomenal job. Thank you so much, Mohan, for sharing your story with us today. And thank you to everyone that's listening in. It was a pleasure to have you on this episode, and we'll come back soon with the next episode. Thank you.